Welcome to another episode of Conduct Detrimental. It is me, Dan Lust, with my pal, hailing all the way from the sunny state of Minnesota. It is Taryn Big T Sharma. Taryn, welcome back, my man.
How's it going, Dan? I missed you.
It's good. Missed you too. I think the audience missed us. I think the audience missed us. You know, trying to be pretty good, trying to get a weekly schedule, but sometimes just like duty calls. And you know, not to listen, this is not gonna be the HIPAA episode. I had a health issue last week. Other people on our team have had issues. Listen, we make it work. Okay. We are promised we're gonna be on. We're gonna try to come back weekly. If it's bi-weekly, it's okay. We'll live. We've done a lot of episodes of this, Taryn. I think we're at like 500 episodes. Who's
Wow.
counting? Close to I don't even, I honestly stopped keeping track. I know we're over 500,000 downloads. Could we have hit a million at this point? I have no idea. I don't pay attention, but we're back, Taryn. That's all that matters. All that matters is we're
Um,
back.
500 episodes, that would mean that we have 382 more episodes than Travis Hunter does yards.
Let's go. Let's go.
I,
And
I just don't think.
498, 498 more teams than Joe Flacco has played for this year. While we're making up fake things. Actually, that's not
No,
fake. That's real.
last time we were on, we were talking about your prop that you thought that Hunter would get to 1,000 yards.
We did talk about that, and that has
Yeah.
been Taryn, an awful, awful bet. The season is young though. Okay, he's still healthy, and he needed to average about 45 yards a game, which somehow he's not hitting. But season's young. Season's young. Okay, so we were recording this on Thursday, October 16th. It's been a little bit longer than we wanted to since we recorded, so we're going to try to do it. And fortunately, we're coming back for some big, big topics. So the lineup for today. Big news today coming out of the Big Ten. It is the like the winter is coming of college sports. It's private equity. It's coming. It's inevitable. It's not a matter of when. It's not a matter of if. It's a matter of where it's going to be. And it looks like it's going to be Big Ten country. Story that we talked about many, many moons ago, probably many years ago at this point. Tyler Skaggs. It is the tragic case of the former Los Los Angeles Angels. I always want to call them the Anaheim Angels, but can't call them that.
Yeah.
Tyler Skaggs, former pitcher with the team, passed away. The trial has begun, so there's been a good amount of reporting in the first 2 days of trial. We'll just remind people where it is, and could have a landmark decision. The trial is going to go for a number of weeks, so by all means, it's not going to be our first time touching on the case. A big story that I initially intended to cover. Then we had some, we'll say, some problems on the back end of conduct. Not an intentional hiatus, just sometimes it happens. I had a little bit of a health issue. It's okay. We're back, better than ever. But it's the Mark Sanchez story. There's certainly some to come out of that, but it's one of those stories that's when, like, when my wife asked me what's going on with Mark Sanchez, I know it is interesting. So I imagine everyone listening to this podcast knows what's going on with Mark Sanchez, but we'll provide our takes in the only way we can, because no other sports law podcasts cover this. We cover it. Maybe we'll cover some other stuff. I have some other stuff in mind. We'll see if we get there. Maybe, Taryn, the newest Cleveland Guardians story. Possible.
Yeah.
Cleveland roller derby Guardians, but not. It's the story taking place on the ice, but we'll get there. Okay, reminder, podcast sponsored by Themis Bar Review, top bar prep company in the galaxy. When people think Themis, they think bar prep, they think aliens. No, they don't. But they think that it's the best and not in the world, in the galaxy, and that's why we love Themis. If you're studying for the bar, at some point, you're going to be thinking, who should I use? Themis. Okay, Taryn, kick us off into Big Ten country. Um, get us into what we're learning about with private equity in the Big Ten saga. I know this is a multi-layered onion to break down.
Yeah. Obviously, you and I both Big Ten guys. Me, University of Minnesota, and you, uh, big Nebraska guy. At least honorary. And ironically, they play each other on Friday this week. Uh, Yeah, this story, and I agree that I think it's looking like where it's going to be rather than if, as it relates to private capital um, being part of college sports. And this deal is really one of the first ones that we've heard significant details about. So this is the Big Ten Conference, as everyone knows, now at 18 members. It spans coast to coast from Rutgers and Maryland all the way to Los Angeles and up to the Pacific Northwest. Um, the proposed deal that is being discussed here, and the other party, the private equity party, being UC Investments, which is the investment arm of the University of California's pension system, would see UC Investments putting $2.4 billion into the conference and getting 10% back. So essentially, the conference's assets would be spun off into a entity known as Big Ten Enterprises, and then there would be 20 shares or units of Big Ten Enterprises, and each of the 18 schools plus the conference plus UC Investments would hold an equal stake. So this would effectively result in multi-$100 million payments being made immediately to the individual conference members, which they would be able to use for any sort of athletic funding, presumably, and that from there, the conference would agree to extend its rights out to 2046. So from 2036, where the current deal runs to 2046. And up until recently, it seemed like this was a foregone conclusion and going to go through, and certain schools were maybe going to get more money than others. You can think of the helmet schools within the Big Ten, but they were set to have some sort of presidents and chancellors vote, and that may not happen now. So this week we've gotten great reporting from Amanda Kristovich at Front Office Sports, and you can go and read her stories. But the University of Michigan's Board of Regents, 8-member Board of Regents, has stated that they are unanimously against this deal. And Michigan would be one of those helmet schools that we think of. They recent national champions is a huge program, historically successful program, and also USC, which has a much larger board of trustees, board of regents, is close to unanimous in their opposition to this deal as well. So it's possible that the Big Ten, Tony Petitti, the conference commissioner, could still push this through, but it's seemingly unlikely that they would do so without the support of both Michigan and USC.
Karen, can I tell you something?
Yeah.
Now, first of all, lovely breakdown. I again, uh, you and I just call it like we see it. I don't think this is going to be a widely popular decision, right? As we've seen with Michigan, this in USC, it gives me shades a little bit of like the cancellation during the 2021 season or 2020 season with COVID. And it was like,
Yep.
who is behind this? Who is the team that wants it? Because what we're hearing are a lot of reports about who doesn't want it. And Michigan getting very clear that we don't want it. USC, we don't want it. So it doesn't seem to be a terribly popular decision amongst the fans either. Now, I'll tell you one further, which I'm just genuinely curious about, and I'll give you my sense, and hope maybe we're on the same page. If we're not, we're not. Um, right now in this era of the house settlement, there's only a finite amount of money that a school can spend on their athlete roster. Now, yeah, if and when that cap is lifted, which I think again, jokes aside, like it's a matter of when, it's not if. It's at some point that'll get lifted, be it collective bargaining or whatnot. Like it's not in the short term, but I envision that being in the long term. At that point, I would view private equity as being a real competitive advantage in terms of being able to acquire talent. But I don't. we've already lived in the era of overspending for schools and having lazy rivers, be it at LSU or wherever else, right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure it just makes economic sense for the blowback you're going to get from fans, um, and the dangers that come with private equity coming in. Taryn, what are your thoughts just on the cap kind of restricting the utility of this?
Well, I still think that the money is useful. There are still things that the conferences have to do. Whether I mean the conference membership has to do, whether that's being consistently competitive in terms of facilities, or even paying large buyouts like Penn State is poised to do with James Franklin if he can't find additional employment. And I know that we're hopefully going to touch on that later as well, but you mentioned this $20.5 million cap on direct payments to student athletes from the colleges and universities, which is stipulated by the House settlement. So for the next 10 years, it's this upward floating, progressive cap that is going to rise probably by the end of the decade to close to $30 million or maybe even more. And I agree with you that 20 and a half, it does provide some sort of uh, kind of like a safety in that, well, why do you need $200 million right now? Because it's only going to be 20 and a half. It's going to be maybe 22, 24 later. Uh, I think that the schools do have a significant number of expenses, and they are also facing a, an, a like an imperative not to cut Olympic sports, women's sports, sports that aren't generating a ton
You
of
know
revenue.
what, Taryn? That's very fair. And I actually, Taryn, you're a smart man. Did anyone ever tell you that?
Thank you, thank you.
Well, that's when you say no. No one's ever told me that before.
No,
You saying
nobody,
thank you is ah,
nobody.
no, that's right. It's already passed. That's the answer. That's the answer. Because yes, the utility is limited in football and basketball, right? But to the extent you are now pulling certain monies out of that program and diverting it in any number of ways, you need to be able to save those other sports. And I pop on, like I don't know, my feed on my phone, like my Explorer page and on Instagram is all like water polo. I don't know, my feed is just a very odd place, but like those sports don't, I think everyone was trending that these things aren't going to exist, right? Unless we do something different to save sports, they're not going to exist. If you start pulling all the revenues out of the department, what are you just going to allow these sports to operate in the mega red with nothing to support them? And Taryn, I think that's probably it. It's to just basically have some semblance of sports so the purists can't get too mad because the sports are being saved. That's Taryn. That is very smart. You're a very smart man over there.
Well, I mean, I hope that that's the end result. There's nothing that guarantees that they're not going to use that money to put another deck on the stadium for football. But
You know
um,
they're going to do that. I mean, why have one lazy river when you could have five lazy rivers?
well, yeah, it's either that or like this coach hasn't won and gotten us to the playoff in year two. Like, let's just pay him $35 million to go away, and
See,
we'll reset.
yeah, I saw some whispers. I mean, and I was reading some of the opposition. It's like, and again, you and I don't profess to be experts in this particular field, but schools have been operating under this tax exempt status for many years, and donations go off at 100% because of this tax exempt status. So there is a school of thought, and I think I saw it from someone in the USC crowd, but essentially the thought process being, if you start getting all this private equity money in, and like, well, at what point is it just a complete sham that you're, a school and you're really just operating as a business? So, let alone what the purists are saying, just from a transactional standpoint, that might be worthwhile, right? And you and I we don't know behind the scenes. We don't know what the books look like. You can get X amount of dollars from private equity, and it certainly comes with a loss of control in some sense. But how does the private equity match up against the amount of donor dollars coming in? And certainly we can talk about donor fatigue, right? You're not going to get, uh, there's not infinite money from your donors. And same can be said certainly with private equity. Um, but donations are what they are. They don't come with pure direct strings attached. While private equity certainly does. And I don't. I just have a hard time seeing it. I mean, it's certainly, we've alluded to it, it's inevitable. I just have a hard time seeing what that looks like. Answering to an outside group that's just controlling the purse strings in a real direct, intangible way.
Yeah, well, I think private equity can be a really good partner for businesses that are really like still finding their footing and trying to grow and develop.
Taryn, these
Um,
schools are like 150 years old, like
they
200
are,
years old.
and not just the schools, right? But their their athletic departments are so notable. It really is like you see the winged helmet, you think of Michigan. You see those Buckeye stickers on the helmet, you think of Ohio State. These are uh, like very important cultural institutions. It's not necessarily something where I think private equity is going to come in and provide maybe the boost that they would as a partner to other businesses, which they definitely do. Um, but to me, I think I agree with the quotes that we've seen coming out. I know Jordan Acker, one of the regents at the University of Michigan, who was very outspoken during their cheating scandal, he has said that this is a very short-sighted decision, and I agree with that. Look, the leagues around the world are trying to actively cut their deals shorter. They're trying to churn their deals. I know we both listened to the Varsity podcast. John Oran was talking about how the NFL is hoping that they will opt out of their broadcasting agreement this in the next couple of years and start their negotiations maybe as soon as this year. And their broadcast partners are hoping the same thing. So why you would then sign yourself up for an additional 10 years to 2046 when you're already locked in until 2036, and understanding how much college sports has changed since 2015, that same 10-year period, it does seem short-sighted to bind yourself in this way because you have no idea how college sports is going to look. And so I think that the money is intoxicating. They do have additional expenses right now, but it does seem a little bit short sighted to trade control for $200 million right now.
Agreed, agreed. And at least from what we see on the outside, I don't see something so pressing as you said, like, when you want private equity money, if you're a distressed asset, right, where you really need the money, you need a cash infusion to save what you're doing. And I don't just don't see that pressing need. And again, we don't know behind the books. We don't see that, but it's interesting. And the only other thing I'll point out too, Taryn, we've talked about this concept on the show for many years about what it would look like if the SEC or the Big Ten or a combination of both or some other schools were to secede from the NCAA and really start their own kind of quote unquote super league. We've thought about we've talked about this concept for years, and
Yeah.
I've kind of said the only concept holding them back is these television deals and these other deals kind of binding them to the NCAA as a whole. So, Taryn, to the point you just said, it just keeps bringing up the same concept. Like, this might keep the fabric of the NCAA together, and maybe it's not going to be called the NCAA, but if you're binding everybody to these traditional television structures, I don't know, Taryn. Maybe it's a win for the purists. If we squint really hard. Maybe that's what this money is designed to do. I
Yeah.
don't know, Taryn.
I
How do we
mean, if
point
you
this out?
consider this 18 team conference to be pure in any sense, then yeah, I think so.
Not everybody does. Taryn, let's hit. Well, before we get off the Big Ten, let's hit James Franklin really quick. And I should have I neglected to put it in the rundown, but I had the thought to talk about it. Taryn, $49 million of dead money. James Franklin, the departed Penn State coach, 3 weeks ago, he was looking at an Oregon team, right? I think Oregon was probably 7 at the time or 5. I don't remember the number. Penn State was number 3 in the country. They're 3-0.
Yeah.
They're facing Oregon,
Yeah.
and James Franklin was feeling good. Okay, and
They were up they were up 30 to 24 in overtime.
they're up 30-24. James Franklin's hearing all the whispers. Can't beat a top 10 team. Can't beat anybody. And he's, you know what? The monkey's finally getting off my back. And then he blacks out. and he doesn't know where he is. And he wakes up a month later and he is jobless. And what happened? Took an L to Oregon, went out to UCLA, took an L to I think they were winless, Taryn? Winless UCLA?
Yeah.
I think so. And then the week after that, they had I think they were a 20.5 point favorite to Northwestern and lost outright. And they go from 3-0 to 3-3. And that's how a $49 million dead, well, we're not going to call it dead cap hit, but dead money, they're going to be paying out Franklin um, for the next 6 years. So Taryn, you joked, right? Part of the reason you might need some private equity money is to pay off these coaches, but I hope that James Franklin is the exception and not the norm. I'm still scratching my head at that firing. I imagine we have some Penn State fans that will listen to this and will scream and kick and say, we just couldn't win the big one. The craziest thing is that James Franklin is probably the most eligible coach on the coaching market, and every team would be dying to have James Franklin as their coach for resuscitating the program from the scratch. So we could talk about the nuance of the contract, Taryn, but I
Yeah.
just I don't think
I
it's a good sign for someone like Franklin to get fired.
I definitely want to talk about the contract. Penn State has good lawyers, whether that's in house or their outside counsel. But I don't know why you think that this isn't going to be the norm. Did you not see Kurt Signetti's new contract today?
No, I saw it. I
If
saw
they
it. Good for
fire him,
Kurt.
if they fire him, uh, Google him. He gets paid all $93 million, fully guaranteed. So no, this is the way that business is done now.
Another Big Ten team.
Yeah, but obviously, like different situation, right? Like if if he sucks at Indiana, all of a sudden, well, they've sucked basically their entire history of fielding a football program. So it's like anything is better than that, and this what they're doing right now is incredible. So I don't think that they're going to fire Kurt Signetti, but um, this situation, I don't blame Penn State fans, right? Like if you think that you can do better, you should chase better. Like if you think you're always going to be third, fourth, fifth fiddle in the Big Ten, you should push for those changes. But the number of times that it's worked out, I think pales in comparison to the number of times that it has failed. Where a and you know this as a big Nebraska guy, right? Like they
Sure.
fired 9-win Bo Pelini, and they went through a fallow period, and they finally hired Matt Rule. Matt Rule, who happens to be a graduate
Yeah.
of Penn State University.
I didn't.
So
I didn't. I didn't love Matt Rule's press conference when he was asked about
yeah,
whether
although
he's going to
he
go to
he
this job.
he did a little bit more today. He said, "Can you imagine how good we're going to be? This is a destination job." And so
Yeah.
I think the
I don't
Huskers
know, Taryn.
breathe easy. He'll get a new contract, and they'll be
You know,
happy.
the funny thing in this market, and we don't have to spend too much time with it, but the funny thing in this market is that Matt Rule was not viewed as a successful coach. This is year 3 of Matt Rule in Nebraska, and he didn't really have particularly successful years in years 1 and 2. And all of a sudden, the team is 5-1, and he's now being considered for a job at Penn State, which I don't know, Penn State's been wildly successful. Like, yes, disappointing in certain big moments, but like I don't like Penn State's been a top consistently a top 15 team in the program, like in the
Yeah,
country.
yeah,
Um, so what like not everyone can win the national championship. Yeah, you'd hope that James Franklin would have more success in those big games, but it seems rather odd that Matt Rule is being considered for the job, having won as of now, and it's the middle of the year, and I'm a Nebraska guy, right? Like one successful year in his last two, and granted, his first two were the first two with the program, but like you can't be that you can't be that fickle to say yes. Matt Rule, who's had one, he's off to a hot start in year 3, is the answer to our problems. Like that, just I don't know. I feel like it's like the scene from what is it? Is it oh Taryn, keep this in, Mike. What's the movie with Ben Stiller? Zoolander. He's like,
yeah.
what am I taking crazy pills? Like James
Yeah.
Franklin's a great coach. He's a fantastic coach, and we're just
Well, yeah,
dumping him.
I mean, I think Rule is a really good coach too, and did a great job at Temple and Baylor, and obviously didn't work out in Carolina, but I think he's still a good coach and a good program builder. If they got Matt Campbell, I think that's a great hire. But like, I don't think you can really compare it against the guys who have won at a high level like right now, right? You're not going to get one of those guys. They're not going to jump from their job to come to you, most likely.
Okay,
But
so now you're stuck paying James Franklin $49 million at least. I don't know.
or
I,
maybe less, right? So let's
sure,
talk about
sure. There's yeah.
that
Let's do it.
that contract provision. So it has something called a mitigation clause. James Franklin is required to look for a job either in broadcasting or coaching, and the money that is owed by Penn State as a buyout is offset by that. And that's a very smart provision to put in. It really limits the exposure that Penn State had here, and and likely made it possible for them to make this type of move, because it's a lot easier to say, hey, look, this money, it might only be like $20 million when you're hitting up the boosters to pay for it, as opposed to this is going to be a $50 million outlay. And that said, like we were talking about whether this is normal or not, don't forget that Texas A&M paid Jimbo Fisher $76 million to go away, which is still so crazy to me. But they finally nailed it here. Like Elko's a good hire.
Yeah, it's this the concept that we learn in law school, the duty to mitigate damages. It's not that different from it's a lawsuit a couple years ago that I remember. Michael McCann had some good reporting on the Brett Bielema lawsuit. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
So Brett Bielema was at Arkansas. They paid him a ton of money, and as is typical, we're not talking about $76 million, $49 million. Like that's not that typical. At least it hasn't been. Bielema was paid some large amount of money, and he basically was taking like unpaid internships, and I'm saying that just kind of colloquially, but like basically very very low paying jobs with like I think the Patriots were one,
Yeah, coaching
and
rehab jobs.
yeah, and like can you blame him? Like, and can you blame the Patriots? Like why would that be viewed as something that he wouldn't do? Like, yeah, it's probably great to get like to be around Bill Belichick, and I guess we'll talk about Belichick momentarily, but it's great to be around Belichick and be around Patriots HQ and get paid by someone else to do it. Certainly, Arkansas doesn't love that, but like that's the nature of the beast. So if you don't put the right protections in the contract, and you can candidly and genuinely say, I tried to get paid employment, but I didn't. Like look at Bielema now. Bielema is turned in, resurrected his coaching career at Illinois. So, I find that interesting. Taryn, do you can we spend a little bit of time talking about Belichick before we move on?
Yeah, I'm happy to.
So I a friend of the show, Blake Topmeyer over at USA Today, he reached out to me about 2 weeks ago, and he was able to get a copy of Belichick's contract, and we're talking about fired coaches. Bill Belichick's got to be has the hottest seat in the entire country. I think the win total for UNC at the beginning there was 7.5, and I remember looking at that and I'm like, I mean, if they're good, they're going to be a top story in all of football. And I had the same thought. If they're bad, it'd be the best story. Not the best, but a very interesting story in football. Who wants them to be mediocre? That's not fun. So 7.5 is they're not going to hit 7.5. They are really really bad. Um, so Belichick's contract's really interesting. People, and I spoke to Blake about it. It's being reported. It was reported at the time as a 5-year contract, but it's not really. It's basically a 3-year contract. But like, I guess in this day and age, you want to be able to tell people we signed Belichick to a 5-year contract, but it's not. And again, I probably gave Blake a juicier quote that he put into the story, which is fine. I just but it is what it is. Belichick's the oldest college coach in the country right now, and everyone, unless you're living under a rock, everyone's saying Belichick's probably lost a step or two, and you have to feel a little bit bad because his legacy is certainly being tarnished. Was he the greatest coach of all time, or was it Brady? Who do we think it is? And now revisionist history, people are saying, well, obviously it was Brady because Belichick can't even win with the UNC program. The program overwent like 90% roster overhaul. And Belichick's likely going to lose his job. Maybe not this year. I doubt he lasts 3 years with the UNC program. And that's not just because the team's not doing well. It's a hot coaching market. If James Franklin's going to lose his job, Bill Belichick is not safe. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if we call him quote unquote a big name college coach in every sense of the word, but he's a big named coach. And I imagine the roars UNC are getting really loud. I think the student body president is asking for an investigation into Belichick.
Yeah.
People are, yeah, I don't know. If I can't imagine being a UNC football fan right now. For the 12 of them that are out there, it seems pretty terrible.
Yeah, it couldn't happen to a better group. Uh, Pablo Torre is going to have apparently a story tomorrow that Mike Lombardi, who has just, I guess, been following
Friend of
Belichick
the
around.
show, Mike Lombardi. What is it about Mike Lombardi? He's been on the podcast before.
All right, friend of the show, Mike Lombardi,
Uh-oh.
apparently left the team in August to go to Saudi Arabia.
To do what?
My guess is fundraise.
Okay. I was just looking at Mike Lombardi's Instagram. Well, listen,
Any
if he's
photos from Riyadh?
no, he's wearing his UNC gear. Uh, I don't know. Could be a green screen. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, Mike Lombardi,
Big
friend of the show, Mike
typewriter guy,
Lombardi,
Mike Lombardi. Yeah.
big typewriter guy.
Yeah.
Well, listen, we will keep an eye on it. So, Taryn, we're decently into this podcast. Let's cover. We've covered a good amount here.
Yep.
Let's move over to Taryn. You get to spin the wheel.
Yeah.
Now let's stay within football. I want to keep Skaggs at the end. It's a little heavier and it's more of a what to watch more than anything.
All right. Well,
Taryn,
this next one is the biggest story, arguably in the sports world and sports law, I think as well.
well, the fact that I don't know what you're saying means that it's definitely not. Is it Sanchez?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was big. It's like it's listen, we're still unpacking it. I think
Yeah.
it's I think it's we're looking at it on the backside. I mean, what else is there to learn? Like, is there going to be some big Mark Sanchez redemption arc? Like, I don't think so.
I mean, he's obviously somebody who has a problem, and no, I hope for a redemption arc. I thought his
So
analysis was pretty good.
let me ask you this. Let's see if you remember if you know what I'm talking about. I did some research, uh, relating. I did some media hits that weekend. I was trying to figure out how many broadcasters in the sports space have been charged with a pretty serious crime and have had a comeback, and not like somebody that had a crime during their career. Like Mike Vick has had a broadcasting career, and Mike Vick had his troubles as a player, and then came back and rehabilitate his image and then is a broadcaster later in his career. So like that is a little bit different. Like when you retire, we kind of take you as you are. Now, if in your post playing career, right, like OJ, and in his post playing career, something happens to you at that point, you don't really make a career arc. There it's not like a perfect example because the guy didn't play. Do you remember what happened to Marv Albert?
No, what happened to Marv Albert?
I'm going to let the kids Google that. I'm going to let the kids Google it. Let's just say, um, and again, not a political podcast, uh, only because I was doing some digging for this recently. I don't want to say anything bad. Can't say anything bad. I won't even say the political joke. I was going to say one, but it's not. Let's just say there were allegations of his sexual nature concerning Marv Albert, who's legendary Knicks broadcaster. Taryn made his way back to the booth. So it's been done, but that was it. That was the only one I could really find. Marv Albert, who has a legendary voice, right? Like, and for people that are Knicks fans or just kind of like legendary basketball fans, he's like, I don't know, he's just a legendary basketball broadcaster. Some of the games don't feel the same without him. No one tunes into a game on NFL Sunday and they're like, oh man, what would do for Mark Sanchez analysis right now? There are any number of analysts that can fill in admirably for Sanchez. And not to say Sanchez isn't good at his job, but if you get charged with a felony, right? Felony assault, 1 to 6 years. And again, unless you're living under a rock, the story as it goes is Sanchez seems, and some of this is from Sanchez's own admissions, that he doesn't really recall exactly the incident. He has no recollection of it. There's a food oil truck delivery driver who's in like 3 in the morning outside of a Terrence Marriott.
Yeah, some hotel downtown Indianapolis.
It could be a Holiday Inn. I mean, that would work too. But
Well, but then you would think that Sanchez would be smarter than to
well, I
do
don't even know if he was staying at the hotel.
that.
Yeah, but then whatever. See, they could change the tagline like, "Yeah, I stayed at a Holiday Inn." How about this? I fought in the alleyway at the Holiday Inn. That rolls right off the tongue. Um, yeah, but Sanchez is in, as the story goes, and surveillance backs this up, and witness reports back it up. Sanchez is uh, again, we'll say allegedly, reportedly, for the amount of times we've done that in the podcast. We just have to be safe. But allegedly doing wind sprints in this alley when he comes, and this guy parks his truck somewhere near the alley and obstructs the alley. And then the story takes a weird turn. Sanchez is saying you have to move your truck. The people inside have to say you have to move your truck. You have to move your truck. And the guy is trying to do his job, and some crazy altercation occurs where Sanchez allegedly is continuing to be the aggressor, and he's throwing the man allegedly into the sidewalk, and the guy seems to legitimately fear for his life. So, Taryn, I'll tell you, and this is what I was going to lead off with before we went down this rabbit hole. Taryn, do you remember where you were when the story all of a sudden flipped?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I was at home, but yeah, bizarre. Because at first I was like, man, poor Mark Sanchez. Like it was a
Got,
robbery.
got
That's
stabbed on the
crazy.
mean streets of Indianapolis.
Yeah. I was like, what is Indianapolis doing?
Well, then it was an Uber driver. Then it was
Yeah.
it was a it was like a DoorDash driver.
Yeah. It just a very weird story. And I've seen the video and what I've seen is very weird. Uh I'm not sure like how to make sense of any of it, which is why I've just like, yeah, he must have a problem.
Yeah. I guess to put a pin in it, right? Like, and I joked that my wife was aware of this. I was literally telling her, Mark Sanchez, we're from New York. So it's like Mark Sanchez, former Jets quarterback, like is in the hospital in critical condition from a stab wound. And then like I get the notification on my phone, he was just arrested in the hospital at his bedside. So,
All right.
I don't know, wild, but uh, at the end of the day, being an NFL being an NFL player, they say is like, it's a right, not a privilege. It's making it to any professional level. Being a broadcaster is the few of the few. It's like the Marines. Like it, it's just the smallest subsect of athletes with name brand, with talent, with some type of notoriety in their playing career. It's just such a small group. Um, and yeah, you feel bad for Sanchez. And then the videos, I saw the surveillance cameras where I think they end up finding him at a bar, like, but you see him like walking in the streets with like a blood soaked shirt. So
Yeah.
this guy had to be, I can only imagine the scenes from that bar when Mark Sanchez walks in bleeding from the shirt with stab wounds, and he didn't even go to the hospital. He just was trying to drink it off.
Yeah. Was he thinking he was going to do the game the next day? Like, I, I don't know. But yeah, to your point, like it is a privilege because they just popped Brady Quinn in there and like didn't miss a beat.
Yeah.
They're
Uh,
like, we'll just put another good college quarterback who was okay in the NFL in this spot.
um, yeah, it's got to be pretty scary, and you feel bad for Sanchez. I mean, like, listen, I, I, I hope that's okay that I'm allowed to say I feel bad for Sanchez. People are saying like I did hit for law and crime, and I said at some point, like when he was in critical condition, I said like thoughts and prayers to Sanchez, and people in the comments were killing me. They're like, "Damn, this guy loves Sanchez." I'm like, I don't know. I can feel bad with someone losing their livelihood. Like that seems pretty bad. Like, yeah, he. I was gonna say he didn't kill anybody, but you know,
Yeah, yeah, and it didn't help the photos that came out of the driver and how badly he was beaten too. It's really bad. But yeah, that's why I was saying he's somebody that has a problem. None of us are like the worst thing that we've done, and he clearly did something wrong. It seems like, and yeah, I hope for redemption for him because
I don't think he's gonna get it, Taryn. I just
yeah, maybe
it
not.
was very very bleak of the
But
precedent.
if Tom Brenneman is back on the air, I think Mark Sanchez may have a chance.
There are people that say slip ups and get back on air. There aren't felony assaults that get back on air. And again, I'm not rooting for it. Just we're lawyers. All we do is deal in precedent. Speaking of, I was going to save this for the end. We'll do it really quick. Taryn, have you seen this new show, the Chad Power Show?
I haven't. No, I don't
Do
have
you know what
Hulu.
it? Uh, Might have to get it. So speaking of Penn State, Eli Manning once pretended to be Chad Powers, this fake guy, and the
Yeah,
thing went viral. It's the whole thing. Um,
yeah.
so do you have any idea why I'm bringing it up right now?
Uh, he punches that guy and tackles the kid that
No,
can't.
no, no, no. I was watching it, and anyway, long short, it's good. It's not going to be the what to watch for, but it's very good. The female lead is Mark Sanchez's wife or significant other.
Whoa!
Yeah. So I was like, can you imagine being in the Mark Sanchez household right now? Like this show, like this it seems to be her big break. Um, and you can look it up on IMDb. Like she's good. She's a good actress. Like I was watching and I'm like, who is this person? And I looked it up and I'm like, oh, can you imagine like this? She gets her big break at the same time, and like he wants to be a supportive husband, and this story is just it's got to be pretty rough. It's got to be pretty rough. Okay, let us switch gears. We like to have a lot of fun on Conduct, and obviously we take the fun stories, and um, you don't get to pick them, and you just get analysis, provide analysis for both the good, the bad, and the ugly side of sports law. A number of years ago, and it's a case I talk about in my class every semester, and just coincidentally, it's next up on my syllabus. Um, just we do kind of a personal injury, negligence, wrongful death class. So I have it next Monday. So this is, just kind of interesting timing. But the Tyler Skaggs wrongful death case started. Um, it's fought in California court. It's a case directly against the Los Angeles Angels for wrongful death. And the real question that is being decided in a trial that started earlier this week is whether and to what extent the Angels are culpable for the passing of Tyler Skaggs. And, I imagine we have some listeners that are not familiar with the case. Um, if you want to go back through our archives, I'm sure we've done some real full analysis on this. But to set the stage a little bit, uh, we have a main player here named Eric Kay, who was basically the communications director for the team. And Eric Kay, who was employed by the Los Angeles Angels, I don't think it's disputed at this point. We don't even have to say allegedly. Um, he was convicted for supplying the drugs that resulted in the death of Tyler Skaggs. So you could talk about res judicata, collateral estoppel, issue preclusion, all that stuff. It's in play here to some extent. And I actually haven't looked at kind of the evidentiary motions concerning the trial, and we'll have to dig into it at some point. But that was, at least at one point, the very difficult part about the Angels defending this case. Eric Kay was someone that did not have a squeaky clean record, had been sent to rehab while he was employed with the Angels. There was testimony elicited by Tim Mead, who I guess was Eric Kay's supervisor. This testimony came out earlier this week, that essentially Mead was suspicious of Kay, that he was still using, and would like check his desk periodically for drug paraphernalia. So, but he never found any evidence of it. So the question was whether, and it seems to be the principal question, whether the Angels are liable under this concept of negligent retention for continuing to employ someone like Eric Kay, who at some point in his life had access to drugs and is alleged later on in his career, while he was with the Angels, is supplying drugs to not just Tyler Skaggs, but a number of players with the team. So there seems to be anticipated testimony from some really big members of the Angels. I saw what purported to be a proposed witness list, involved some very, very high level Angels, to see what was going on with the clubhouse, what the team knew, what the players knew. So, yeah, it's not every day you find a team culpable in the death of a player, but that's exactly the question that's on trial right now. So, yeah, Taryn, I don't know how closely you're following this case, but if this is it, it and I think they're looking for 118 million dollars. It's not an
Right.
issue whether the Angels can afford the money. It's just a finding that the Angels did some type of act that resulted in the death of their player will send shockwaves through all of sports.
Yeah, I think that that's part of it, but 118 million dollars is obviously a lot of money as well, and yeah, it's a I think tough position for the Angels attorney because you have to be sensitive because they obviously um, are still mourning Tyler Skaggs, like he was an important part of their organization, and so you want to say, hey, this isn't our fault, but um, you know, this was on him, without being kind of rude or confrontational. So difficult. Um, uh, Got to thread the needle there, but yeah, this is it's an interesting story. I agree that it does set some sort of probably a precedent that people are going to look back at, if not binding, to uh, see what the responsibility of a team is to somebody that they're employing and somebody that they are that they're rostering as well.
Yeah, we'll check in periodically in the case. I thought the testimony from Mead was interesting today about whether Kay, as a longtime employee, like they could have fired him, right? Like mid, if someone goes to rehab, it's pretty cool of an. I don't want to say cool. Cool is probably not the right word, but like it says a lot about the values of an organization if someone is going through personal struggles to not kick them to the curb and to try to help them work through it, right? And to keep them, enable them to potentially keep their job while going through rehab, right? We're not talking about, at least at this stage, right, in the decision to keep him, someone like Mark Sanchez, who had, was charged with a felony. We're talking about someone that had a personal problem, and everyone, not everyone, but people have demons, right? So maybe it was the wrong word choice of cool, but hopefully people knew what I meant. That the Angels were trying to make this work, trying to make it work with someone that was going through something that had been involved in the organization for many years. So Mead is being questioned as to whether the team was willing to, or essentially overlooked things that should have resulted in a firing because they really wanted to make it work with Kay. And that decision, which I could say is cool, and I think speaks to the values of an organization that they're trying to stick by their people and helping them work through tough times. That's the exact component of the case that these plaintiffs' attorneys are really pushing as making the team culpable. Hey, you knew or should have known that this was not going to work out. So anyway, that's where we're at in the case. We're going to continue to follow it. There seems to be anticipated testimony from players coming. So, you can imagine the big names of the Angels that were on the team at the time: Pujols, Mike Trout. You know, I I've told the story in the podcast before, but Matt Harvey was on the team. There was some testimony during the criminal case that Harvey was involved, we'll say, in the nightlife of the Angels. Um, so, and the Angels' defense seems to be that Skaggs, Skaggs was Skaggs' worst enemy. Like Skaggs had no one to blame but Skaggs, and it was Skaggs' own demons that caused his demise, which we'll see if it bears out in the course of the case. This issue of causation. So, yeah, Taryn, I don't know if there's much more to add, but we certainly are not doing our job as a sports law podcast if we're not alluding to an ongoing trial on a monumental issue in sports.
Yeah, um, I think okay to leave it there.
Cool. Okay, Taryn, let's do one more, and then I don't have that much more. Taryn, have you been following the NHL's Utah Mammoth?
I know that they are getting a ton of support and that they may be a playoff team this year.
Okay, well, like everyone may be a playoff team in week one of the NHL season, Taryn. Thank you. That was like the Mark Sanchez of analysis there.
They have a good young core, including my guy Logan Cooley, the former Gopher.
They have a guy named Dylan on their team too. It's very important.
Yeah.
I have a daughter named Dylan. I'm actually in a fantasy hockey league for the first time in many, 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 many years. I was peer pressured into being in it. I'm like, they got a guy named Dylan who's on the front line, drafting him. Turn my team's in last place. I have no idea what I'm doing, but to teach their own. So listen, there was a lot of issues. And I do this in my class as well. The Cleveland baseball team, turned into the Cleveland Guardians. The Washington Football Club turned into the Washington Commanders. And last year we had our own, Utah Hockey Club scenario where they were trying to figure out their name. And the Utah Yeti was initially the leader in the clubhouse, and then there was an issue with Yeti water bottles. And I have a Yeti water bottle, and I don't know, not that I was that confused between a combination of the two. So they end up settling on the team named Mammoth. And I don't know, I think Utah Mammoth is a pretty cool name. I don't really think Cleveland Guardians is that cool. I don't think Washington Commanders is that cool. But, Utah Mammoth seemed pretty cool. So I was into it. And then, Taryn, we find out that there is already a mammoth, and it's a mammoth within the Associated Hockey World, and they make hockey bags. Taryn, that brings us to a lawsuit filed 2 weeks ago. Um, well, I guess it dates back a little bit. Originally, there had been conversations between Mammoth, this Mammoth Hockey, which is a hockey manufacturer, and the Utah hockey team, that this Mammoth, they wanted to get paid, this Mammoth equipment, that this name was unfair. And apparently there was some chirping, as they say in hockey, back and forth. And the hockey club filed a declaratory judgment action that was filed a couple months ago. And that was responded to within the past few weeks with an injunction filed by the Mammoth hockey equipment to try to basically like cease the hockey team from operating under that name. As evidenced by the Mammoth hockey team playing tonight, that injunction has not yet been granted. But it just speaks to the difficulty of finding a name in the post-COVID era. Like everyone's coming out, everyone is complaining. I don't know. Taryn, do you think there's a world where they have to change their name after having already started the season? Do you think that's in the cards?
No, I think that they will settle with Mammoth Hockey Bags. But I do think that it's interesting that the claim that Mammoth Hockey Bags is making is that that the SEO has gotten totally messed up now, and so if you search Mammoth Hockey, like you're not gonna get to Mammoth Hockey Bags, you're gonna get to the Utah Mammoth, and that's probably just going to continue to be the case as the team plays more games and gets more stories written about them. And um, I do think it's interesting. They argued that online searches specifically for Mammoth Hockey Bags leads to the NHL's team store first, but I just looked that up and it took me directly to mammoth-hockey.com. So I, the SEO seems to be working.
Yeah, I remember this issue came up with the Guardians, and if you put into Google Cleveland Guardians, the baseball team comes up. But if you go to clevelandguardians.com, it still goes to the roller derby team. So same concept. Taryn, there's probably like 10 people listening to this podcast, and they're like, "What is this Cleveland roller derby thing that they keep bringing up?" Just go in the archives, do some quick googling, you'll figure it out. Taryn, I asked, by the way, as a quick aside for our OG listeners, I was doing prep for my class, and I was just getting a refresher on the Guardian stuff, and I went into ChatGPT and I was like asking, like, remind me of the timeline of when the trademark was filed and this. And ChatGPT was citing very heavily to condetrimental.com.
Let's
And
go.
yeah, and I said, tell me everything you can about this crazy sports lawyer named Dan Lust and his penchants for writing about this roller derby team. It didn't acknowledge that I was crazy. I would have liked for it to have done that. It did not. It was a little disappointing. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, I agree with you. There's no chance they change the name mid-year. But to Mammoth Hockey Bag's point, Mammoth have invested now tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars into this team name. So they'll cut a check at some point. But we're way too early down the line in this declaratory judgment action to see who was actually right. And the reason that Mammoth Hockey team, I was going to say Mammoth Hockey, but that certainly doesn't solve the issue of consumer confusion. But the Mammoth Hockey team filed this declaratory judgment a couple of months ago to vet this out. You can't just have both sides saying it causes consumer confusion. It doesn't cause consumer confusion. It's diluting our rights. It's not diluting it. You go to a court, just like Mammoth Hockey Club started, and you file a declaratory judgment action to make a judge rule on that, to have some type of some type of security if you're right or you're wrong. But it's like they say, shit or get off the pot. You have to make a decision on this. So yeah, we're not gonna get an answer so quickly. But again, just know that it's kicking around the courts. Okay, Taryn, we're close to an hour in here. Anything else that we have not covered yet?
No, I think we could do a little what to watch for if you want.
Let's do a what to watch for. Taryn, kick us off, and we will. I'll bring us home.
Yeah, well, this is a great time of year. One of my favorites. Baseball playoffs have been fantastic, and hockey has just started back up. We've got NFL football right in the thick of it. College football. I read that last Wednesday was the last day without a football game until the Super Bowl. So I was pretty hyped about that. but we also have been trying to watch some documentaries. I just watched Katrina, Hell or High Water.
What's
The
that on? What's streaming?
That's on Netflix,
Ooh.
and we have been to New Orleans the last couple of years for the Tulane National Moot Court competition, and have the really enjoyed the Mardi Gras Moot Court Invitational, and always trying to learn more about New Orleans. It's just such a cultural mecca in the United States, and so we watched that. I learned so much about Hurricane Katrina and the aftermath that I really didn't know. So highly recommend that one. It's called Katrina, Hell and High Water.
Taryn, that's a good one. I think Chad Powers one is good if you have Hulu. I actually think it's pretty good. I'm not just saying that. Um, but if we're in Taryn, I'm a big sports doc guy. Amazon Prime, low key, has a incredible sports doc library. I
Oh, I
think they're
got to
just
check that.
yeah, like a very strong sports doc. I watched the Barry Sanders documentary a couple weeks ago. I thought it was very good. The one that I just watched, Taryn, you're gonna love this. It's very good. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
Speaking of Michael Vick, I was just scrolling around trying to find something. The evolution of the black quarterback, and it's Michael Vick basically going and visiting all these legends like Donovan McNabb, like Randall Cunningham,
My
uh,
guy Doug Williams, he in
Doug
there?
Williams, of course, uh, Rodney Peete. It's just we're in an interesting era. Like I grew up, I'm born in '88, so like I grew up with Donovan McNabb. Like I don't really view this dichotomy between white quarterbacks and black quarterbacks. It's just they're quarterbacks. I just don't I just didn't grow up like that.
Yeah.
And then you go back and there's so much pomp and circumstance in a good way about Jackie Robinson and like how he broke the color barrier, and we pay so much attention to that. And there's something interesting that like it wasn't. It's a very odd thing for football. I can't. You have to watch a documentary. They do a fantastic job explaining it, but the color barrier was broken, and no one really. You'll watch doc and you'll see who the first black player was in football. But what's odd is that there was a barrier around a certain position, like there were a lot of black football players, but no black quarterbacks. And there would be black quarterbacks at the college level who had tremendous success at the college level. Warren Moon being a great example, and the
Yeah.
NFL just blackballed black quarterbacks. And Warren Moon, there's Tony Dungy tells a story that him and Warren Moon, Tony Dungy, obviously Super Bowl winning quarter or coach for the Peyton Manning Colts, him and Warren Moon were like the top quarterbacks. And by the way, where did Tony Dungy play his college ball, Taryn?
University of Minnesota.
There we go. And him and Warren Moon were like the two best college quarterbacks. And like they both were told, hey, you can't play quarterback in the NFL. And
Huh.
Dungy's like, okay, cool. I'll go play like free safety. My goal is to play in the NFL. And Warren Moon's like, no, I'm going to go to the CFL. So he
Yeah.
goes to the CFL. He's incredible. And then breaks the barrier coming from Canada. It's like it's modern sports history. Just no one talks about it, and it's so odd. Like you hear traces of it, right? Like Terry, remember all this talk around Lamar Jackson when he was like, is he like a wide receiver? Do you remember all this? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Running
it,
back.
it's like that's probably the last guy that conversations happened around. But there's this weird like you know 15-year transition period, maybe it's 20 years, but right in the middle of all that is Mike Vick, who I remember like I was 13 when Michael Vick was on like the cover of Sports Illustrated, and Michael Vick was like the coolest quarterback, and he like
Yeah.
broke all the video games.
Everyone
And
wanted Michael Vick.
yeah, and it's just I didn't, you and I grew up. I didn't think anything of it, but when you
Yeah.
really look at it through the history and prism of football, um, it speaks a lot about who Mike Vick was. And obviously, Mike Vick is not a squeaky clean guy. If we did the Conduct Detrimental podcast during the dogfighting scandals,
Yeah.
you know, that would not have boded well for Mike Vick.
No, that
Um,
would have been terrible.
but yeah, like nobody talked about it. Like tearing the draft that we just had with Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud and Anthony Richardson. Like nobody
Mhm.
talked about it. Those were three black quarterbacks taken within the first five picks, and this doc does a great job explaining that like it's not a thing anymore, and it's great that it's not a thing. But you only realize the significance of it when you kind of go with Mike Vick through the history of football. So I highly did not know what I was signing up for. Highly recommend it. It was fantastic.
Yeah, I'm with you in that I grew up during that era as well. And Randall Cunningham, Donovan McNabb, as you mentioned. One funny thing about Michael Vick, and I'm not sure if they mentioned in that documentary, but Michael Vick's college decision came down to Virginia Tech and Syracuse. And
I did
Syracuse,
know that.
oh, okay, they were trying to sell him on being the next Donovan McNabb.
Guess who
Uh,
was trying to sell him on being the next Donovan McNabb?
who's that?
Donovan McNabb.
Oh, there you go.
Hey,
Um,
keep going, keep going. I've been
No,
trying to
no,
catch your draft
but
every
yeah,
week.
I also never thought about it. Obviously, knew about Doug Williams because grew up in the DC area. But yeah, it's that's really cool, and I'm glad it should be a meritocracy and about the skill that you can bring to the position rather than any sort of qualities that
Uh,
are innate.
I'm going to tell you one more thing, and then I was going to tell you trivia, but whatever. We'll close on this. I thought this was the most interesting thing in the doc, and I said it, hopefully a lot of things that our listeners will find interesting. And again, it's very good, but whatever. Um, Taryn, do you know who Mike Vick grew up idolizing their game, and he thinks that this person paved the way for him to play his game in the pros? It was the craziest person. It's crazy.
Who's that?
Steve Young.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, I get it.
So there was he I again it just I watched all these guys growing up, but I just didn't view football through this prism. So you kind of just rewatch it. It's very interesting. But there was this concept of like, yeah, you can run in college, but like you got to be a pocket passer in the pros. And as time passed, there started to be more running white quarterbacks, and then Mike Vick views a guy like Steve Young as having paved the way for him, which I just think is you just never would think about. Yeah, I again, I was just sitting there, Taryn, with my phone. I was on College Football Reference, and I was just like, all these names I'd never heard of. Even Tony Dungy's college stats, like I never viewed him. I didn't know he played quarterback. But I don't know, Taryn. I thought it was really good. Okay, Taryn, here's my trivia
Yeah,
question for you, and you got to answer it.
Steve
You got to
Young.
answer honestly.
Uh, yeah, Steve Young, Greenwich High School. Go ahead. Yeah,
Greenwich High School.
yeah,
Okay. You got to answer this question. Okay.
yeah.
Mike, do not edit this. Michael Vick's younger brother is.
Marcus. Yeah,
Okay. And with that, Taryn, we'll end the show. Marcus Vick would have been a Hall of Famer,
he broke my heart. Yeah, robbed
but
that guy
for.
in the McDonald's parking lot.
Okay, fine. Last one. Last one. I gotta. We just gotta say this because I got into a deep rabbit hole of research on this. Okay,
Yeah.
Taryn, who is the only player, and I believe this is correct. Again, quote me on this. Whatever. The only player in again, this is how it was reported in the show. The only player to ever be number one ranked in two different sports at the same time in high school. Two different sports, number one ranked. And here's your
Um,
hint. Here's your hint. He's from Newport News, Virginia, alongside Michael Vick and Allen Iverson. And here's your third and final hint. He
hmm,
went to the University of North Carolina Tar Heels.
okay. Is mm, it's not Lawrence Taylor.
It is not Taryn. Taryn, and I know you were being honest. It is a guy. It must have been a who's who or whatever. What could have been Ronald Curry. I want you to look up that name.
Okay.
He played UNC basketball, UNC football. Was a quarterback. Should have been the guy. Injuries, man.
Yeah,
Injuries.
and
He could
also
have
just
been
wearing the wrong shade of blue. So
wearing the wrong shade of blue. He knew. He knew that Belichick was going to come to the program and tarnish it 30 years later, and he just knew he didn't want to be associated. Okay, that'll do it for us here at Contact Detrimental. Appreciate everyone's patience with us coming back on. We'll try to be more regular, but if not, when you get us, we'll have a ball of a time. Taryn, thank you for joining as always. Thank you to everyone for listening each and every week. We do record an episode, and each and every week, at least checking in on your boys, see if we're on hiatus. We were not. We were somewhat ill, but we're back. Thank you to Mike Kravchenko. Thank you to the Conduct Detrimental team. And with that, we will see you next time on another episode. Keep it in, Mike. On another episode of the Sports Law Podcast, Conduct Detrimental.